post recently about this documentary. I want to bring it back to your attention, and I'm going to make sure there's a link in the description below. Reasons for that is because the Seventh-day Adventist Church was featured in part in this documentary. Now, the title of this one is God Complex, The Rise of American Censorship Machine. Powerful documentary, and I'm going to make sure it is linked in the description. Make sure you go underneath the video. When I say description, you have to go underneath and click here, because some people say they don't know how to find it. So you go underneath the video, you click description, and the documentary is going to be posted there. Okay, so now the part of the documentary that really caught my attention is when Samuel Neves came on the screen. And I was like, wait, I've met this guy, because we went to GC and we said, oh yeah, there he is. He's the guy we did the ANN podcast, right? At least that's what I knew. Came to find out there's so much more going on here. But we took a picture together. Very nice guy, by the way. Very, very nice guy, down to earth. By the way, those red badge means bad news, okay? That's a sign that you need to run away from these kind of people. Now, here's the thing. For those of you who don't know who Samuel Neves is, he was the official communication director. He was then appointed to become the official director of GC Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. Very important position to have. And Samuel is from Brazil and also got educated in UK. Very interesting guy. Listen, you got to get to know him. All right. He's tried to strike a balance about the issues in the church, and he tried as much as he can, to be fair. And in his podcast, there's some good information there that I remember watching ANN on several occasions. Many things he said that I'm like, I appreciate that. That's insightful. Some things were questionable, of course, as always. But I appreciate him now. In this documentary, we're going to talk about this part here where the Seventh-day Adventist was featured. Another good important catch, this documentary is from Big Picture Originals. So they are one of the largest media network from Brazil, and Samuel Neves is also from Brazil. So some connections must have been made. So there must have been my assumption is there must have been some Seventh-day Adventists behind the making of this documentary. So anyway, we know we actually have one of the largest growing population of Adventists right now is happening in Brazil. With the election of and Kohler, also a Brazilian, a lot more Brazilian people have become interested in Seventh-day Adventism. Anyway, we can have a whole conversation about that. But did you know that the Seventh-day Adventist Church, at least the website of the church, had experienced a degree of censorship during COVID? I didn't know that. Well, that's what we're going to find out in this document. Let's take a listen, because I do have a question at the end regarding some of that as well.
Very early on, we started offering prayer, because that's what a church can do. We could offer prayer. So we prayed for about 2 million people globally from within our Instagram and Facebook page of the World Church. And this exponentially grew our page. And this meant that all of that volume, all at once, I believe, received a higher level of attention from the reviewers and the people who were checking for content, whether to allow it, not to allow it, to take it down, and so on and so forth. So we started having some of our ads take down. We were just offering prayer. And because the word COVID was present, the ads were taken down. And then some ads were allowed. So we started changing the language, not using the word COVID, not using these trigger words that would become problematic. And again, we never imagined having to think through these words that were perfectly applicable if another human was reading it. But because the algorithms are reading it, algorithms in the text, algorithms in the images, and now we're being censored by algorithms.
That's crazy, isn't it? I remember experiencing the same problem with YouTube. But guys, I've been on YouTube for more than 10 years now. Some of you probably know me in just last year or so. Listen, I've been on here for more than 10 years. This channel is new, but I had another channel on YouTube. Listen, I was getting censored, shadow banned, shut down. It was crazy what they were doing to my channel. At one point, they took my entire channel down for like 4 months. I had no contact with anybody. I'm like, that's just wrong. And then when they give it back, you know what they said? Oh, sorry, this was a mistake. I'm like, you just, so anyway, I had to keep my cool. I'm telling you, friends, censorship is horrible. It's terrible. There's a lot of things you can't speak about, even until today. Censorship is still a problem. For those of you who don't think this was a thing, but I never knew that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was facing censorship like that either. And I found that to be extremely interesting. Wait till you see what else the man has to say.
And so this, I don't know if fear is the right word, but across our teams, what is it that we said? What is it that we should say? In a polarized society where censorship is encouraged, you never know how people will interpret how you are writing something, how you are saying. It's the old problem, right? Nobody wants lies being told. What we haven't figured out is who will be the one defining what is a lie and what is true.
The censorship was horrible. Now, here is the part of the documentary that I found interesting. I do have to highlight this double standard. Not so much in a documentary, but regarding the institution of our church. Here is the reason why. One of the things that the documentary highlights very clearly and over again on at least 4 different scenes in the documentary was that USAID was working with the tech gurus, CIA, and many other intelligence agencies, and with the government to censor the speech of American people. USAID was behind that. And it impacted our church. It impacted the Facebook of our church, right? Now, listen carefully, and I'll make the point later on.
By 1967, USAID was already paying the special forces recruited, CIA-directed hillside guerrillas in Cambodia to pay for their economic construction of their villages. This is a way to join this CIA mercenary group, by the way, is they're getting funded by USAID. But USAID even went a step further and bought 2 airplanes for them in order to transport weapons and narcotics and supplies. I say this, and oftentimes people will laugh, and then they'll be surprised when I keep a relatively straight face, but I always say when it's too dirty for the CIA, you give it to USAID. All covert actions had to be approved in writing by the US president so that you could never have a situation again like in the 1960s and 70s where a president could say, the CIA went rogue, I didn't know about it. That restriction is not on the U.S. Agency for International Development. They can do the exact same thing that the CIA does, but it doesn't need to be approved by the president.
The program used cell phone text messaging to circumvent Cuba's strict internet restrictions. At its peak, it drew in more than 40,000 Cubans. However, its subscribers were completely unaware they were using a U.S. government program and giving American contractors their private data to potentially use for political purposes. Perhaps most shockingly, the Cuban Twitter program was not paid for and run by a spy agency such as the CIA. Instead, it was the brainchild of USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, best known for overseeing billions of dollars in U.S. humanitarian aid.
All right, we want to pause here. You need to watch this. This is a powerful documentary. So you've seen that and you've heard that. USAID was working with intelligence department and part of the reason, and also the tech gurus, right? And they were censoring the speech of the American people over the pestilence 19 situation, including the vax, the jab, right? Speech of Americans were censored. We were muffled saying you can't have this opinion because these huge companies were working with the government and they were censoring the speech, including the Seventh-day Adventist Church was impacted. The institution of our church, their Facebook page was impacted by this. But wait a minute. ADRA navigates. But wait a minute. ADRA navigates disruption caused by USAID funding freeze. The humanitarian arm of the church was still getting paid by USAID. But USAID was censoring the voices of American people, including the church, at least on their Facebook page. Isn't that crazy? ADRA responds to USAID funding pause, embracing opportunities for continuity. This is after Donald Trump says freezes all of them. Now, I'm pretty sure things are back to normal now. I don't know what you want to make of that, but yeah. Even Ted Wilson had to come out and address USAID funding pause and its impact on ADRA International. I remember that video because we spoke about this. And it impacted ADRA in a very negative way. But again, they were being funded by USAID. This has been reported as well by Spectrum to the tune of $62 million. ADRA stated that it received $62,617,898 from USAID funding humanitarian programs worldwide in 2023. I mean, do you understand what I'm trying to say, guys? The same system that censored the voice of the church and many American people, including myself, the same system who did that, the humanitarian arms of the church, largely depends on that system. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just like the optics are bad. So the optics are bad. Here's what the Bible said. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Therefore, any institution of our church that depends on these financial support from these companies who are anti-freedom, who have a God complex, who want to censor speech, and they pushed the pestilent stuff on us and encouraged the jab. How can you unite with them? How can you support any institution that does such a thing? Why would you receive your money from them even after this has been revealed, right? And that's my concern when it comes to ADRA in particular, but also the vaccine statement that was made by the church in 2015 falls in line with the same concepts of these institutions as well. So in other words, you have a relationship with the very same system who is actually taking away your freedom of speech. Ultimately, your religious freedom. We know where this thing is going to go. So my concern is, what exactly are we doing? Where do we think this is going to go? And again, the documentary is powerful. And again, this is not an argument against Brother Neves. I think this is an honest man. He's trying as hard as he could. What I'm trying to say is that this is a problem. You can't have this double standard and thinking that the enemy is not going to take advantage of you later on. Yeah, I'm a little bit careful how much connection we make, because sometimes those things do not always correlate as we may see them. And now we have this NGO status thing that's been exposed. We've talked about that. And there is also a connection with the United Nations. And it's like the church is saying there's nothing to see here. It's almost like there's nothing to worry about. All is well. And I'm like, no, all is not well. All is not well. These were the same systems who censored your speech in 2019 to 2024. They censored your speech. These are the same system who pushed the COVID, the vax on the people. These were the same system who did that. And also, in the way that we responded to people who protested in the church, ministers who rose a voice of protest, the way we shut them down. And even in the recent GC 2025, many of the delegates who tried to speak about the matter, what did they get? Be quiet. Be quiet. Stop talking. Stop talking. All right, let me show something to you right now. Let me show you something. Church-state relations, just in case you don't understand anything I'm saying. Listen, documents, March 1st, 2002. This is on the official one of the official statements of the church. And I want to read to you what it says. Let's go down here. In instances, when acceptance of government funding does not violate the foregoing principles, careful consideration should be given to whether government funds should be accepted. Ongoing government funding, as opposed to single financial contribution, presents a particular danger. It is virtually impossible for institution not to become at least partially dependent on ongoing governmental funding streams. Such government funding typically is accompanied by governmental regulation. Correct. While such regulations may not violate Christian principles, when the money is first received, such regulations are subject to change. Interesting. In the event that regulations governing the receipt of government funds change to require the abandonment of the principles of our institutions described in the Bible and by Ellen G. White, ongoing, listen carefully to the following words, ongoing governmental funding must be refused, even if, as a result, the institution must be closed, sold, or significantly restructured. Wow. This is what we say on paper, but in principle, we are doing something else. May the Lord have mercy on the institutions of our church. I was speaking to someone, he's way up there, and he knows his stuff. Okay, I'm not going to mention the name. He said, listen, if tithes and offerings were just cut off from every member of the church, if every SDA chose not to return tithes and offering, and I'm not saying to do that, I'm simply saying this is what he was sharing. He says the organization of the church will function just as good. I said, how could that be? Because isn't the tithe and offering what sustains the leadership and the function and as well as ministry? He says, yeah, but they have so many other sources of income, so many ways to get money in relation with the government that tithe and offering is like a small margin. I said, stop. Anyway, friends, if you want to know more about that, I can get you some information, some more pages and stuff, and show you that what he shared with me, there's evidence for it. It is very small. Anyway, and we're not even talking about the majority of Seventh-day Adventists, which are like 50% of SDAs don't even return tithes to the church. So we're not even talking about that number. So I understand exactly what he meant. So my question, I appeal to the church. I appeal to the institution of our church. What exactly are we doing? Where do we think we're going to go with this? That's my questions to you. And again, to the leadership of the church, you think God can't see this? And to the people of the church, we got to be strong in these times. We got to be strong because we are heading toward trouble. And you're going to have a relationship with Jesus like never before. Like never before. And I'm telling you, the way this thing is set up, the way I'm looking at it, the way I see the enemy is working, not just on the outside, but also within, we are about to hit a serious brick wall. And there's going to be a lot of hearts broken. And I think a lot of our institutions are going to just come crumbling down. More than any other time today, please, 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 strengthen your relationship with Jesus. Strengthen your walk with him. You're going to need him. You're going to need him. You will see what I mean very, very soon. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.